Okay guys, so we are finally down to our very last type of essay concerning the English 2 state test. Now this video is about informational essays. This is very simple. This is not going to take us long to get through. So here's the very last type of essay that you can be asked to write on the English state test. Informational. Now with informational, they're going to give you nonfiction only. There is no such a thing as writing an informational essay on a piece of fiction. It just doesn't work. So if you get an informational prompt, you may have 1 to 2 to 3 passages that go along with it. Most of the time these are going to be scientific articles, research articles, things like that. They can also be historical documents, speeches and newspaper articles. But when you get these are all going to be nonfiction. Now what makes the informational essay so simple is that basically all you're doing is summarizing. So let's say you were given 2 passages, okay? One is a speech from Martin Luther King. The other is a speech concerning the same topic, but from Malcolm X. Now what they would ask you to do here is to read both speeches. What they're going to ask you, if you've gotten 2 speeches, let's say, they're going to ask you to read those speeches and then evaluate them. All that really means is they're wanting you to compare and contrast. They want you to talk about what point of view was in the first speech, what did it talk about, what kind of connotation did it use, and the same thing for passage 2. Now when I say connotation, what I'm referring to is the emotion that goes with a word. So in Martin Luther King's speeches, you're not going to see a whole lot of anger. You're going to see more peace and comfort and trying to bring people together. But maybe in a different speech, you may see something that's got a completely different tone. Maybe it's an accusatory tone. Maybe it's a very negative tone. But they're on the same topic. So what the essay would be about is just going through and talking about what's similar about these speeches and what is different. Basically summarizing. That's all you're doing. You're summarizing and you're comparing contrast, okay? So obviously you do still need to have evidence in this type of essay. If you've been given 2 different passages, you need to pull evidence from both of those passages. And the last thing we have is paragraphs, 3 minimum, 4 average. If you are asked to summarize or evaluate one speech, then it's very easy to get away with 3 paragraphs. Your intro, body paragraph 1, which will be whatever they're asking you to discuss, and then paragraph 3 will be your conclusion. Now back to the example I gave earlier. Let's say that I have 1 speech from Martin Luther King and 1 speech from Malcolm X, okay? And they're both on the discussing the civil rights movement, and we are asked to read both speeches, evaluate them. So what I would do there, since they gave me 2 passages, I would have paragraph 1 as my intro. Paragraph 2, I would discuss maybe the similarities between Martin Luther King's speech and Malcolm X's speech. And then paragraph 3, I would discuss what? The differences. The difference between Martin Luther King's speech and Malcolm X's speech. And then the last paragraph, paragraph 4, would be my conclusion. And that's basically it. That's all there is to informational. So the only reason that people tend to stumble if they get an informational text is because the passages sometimes can be very difficult to get through. If they have a lot of domain-specific vocabulary and jargon that you may not understand, that can make it a little more difficult. But even if it is a passage that's difficult to understand, they're not going to give you something that is impossible to understand. It is geared toward 10th grade. It may be on the upper level of 10th grade, but it's still something that you should be expected to be able to understand. Most of the time, the nonfiction articles that you will see with an informational prompt are going to be scientific articles, research documents, but they can also be historical documents, speeches, and newspaper clippings and things like that. Now, what makes the informational essay so simple is most of the time, all you're really doing is summarizing. The only thing they're looking for in informational is that you can do citations, that you can pull a quote and cite it. They're looking to see if you can, oh my God, Emily, talk. Don't not knock stuff over while I'm trying to film a video. Madeline! The other is a speech concerning the same topic, but from Malcolm X. Now, what they would ask you to do here is to read both speeches. What is a speech? No, Emily, you don't read both speeches, you read both speeches. If the article you get does have that heavy jargon and those domain-specific vocabulary words and you're having a hard time figuring them out, oh my God, bird, hush. And that's basically it. There's not really much more to the informational essay. I don't actually spend too much time teaching this in class because it isn't difficult to write. This one and the narrative are the two easiest. The ones that you really have to study a little bit more on are the literary analysis essays and the argumentative essays. Now, of course, obviously, you still need to understand narrative informational and you need to know what to do when you see those, but what? But what? What was it? But something, I don't know what I was in the 10th grade. So meaning you're going to have context clues that can tell you what these words are. Okay, so make sure that you do that. That was really lame too. Remember, if you oh my gosh, what was that? Get through all that difficult vocabulary, what you need to do is to use your context clues. Remember, this is a state test that has been formed. If that bird does not stop screaming, Maui! Maui, what are you screaming about? What are you screaming about? Huh? You have nothing to be screaming about right now. I'm over there trying to make a video. I need you to be quiet. Can you be quiet? Yeah? All right, now I'm going to go back over here and finish, okay? This is my job. You're sort of interrupting me a little bit. So as long as you use your context clues, you should be able to figure this out. Remember that this test was created for you, for 10th grade levels, Remember that this test was created at a 10th grade level. So they're not going to give you something that is impossible to understand. If they've given it to you, even if it seemed, oh my gosh. I hope that they really benefited you and that you now feel more confident than you did a few days ago about taking your state test this year. All right, I'm going to close it out with my phrase that I tell my students every single day when they leave my class. Be sweet, don't do drugs, have a good day.